Welcome to another exciting edition of American Warrior Radio, the place to be for news, notes, interviews, and current events for all issues military and veteran related. If you or someone you know has ever worn the uniform of the U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, or National Guard or Reserves, you've come to the right place. American Warrior Radio, right here on the Talk to Me station, AM 1300 WMEL, and folks, we're online worldwide at 1300WMEL.com, and we are sponsored by AVET Project. Listen, this program is all about supporting our troops and their families, both past and present. So please get comfortable, grab a nice beverage, and don't forget a pen and paper, because we're always efforting to bring you important information that you can use and share with others. With that said, let's roll down the runway and get this show off the ground. You all know me. I'm Garen Cohn. I'm an Air Force veteran, a retired legal advocate for veterans, and founder of AVET Project. But you also know, all you regular listeners of American Warrior Radio, I never fly through the airwaves alone.
Good morning. I'm Glenn McGuffey. I'm retired United States Air Force and retired as the manager of the Brevard County Veteran Services Team, where it was my honor to serve our veterans and eligible family members for over 22 years. As usual, you hear me say this all the time, but it's always true. We've got a wonderful, exciting show for you today, and we're going to start with a guest that you've heard from before, very special guest, and going to talk about a new recurring segment that we're going to have on the show every month. And with that, let Garen have the honors to introduce. Well, I think you got a lead in and then
sure.
An introduction.
Well, you threw it back at me and I caught it just like that, Glenn. Yes, we have a couple new segments coming to you this year on American Warrior Radio. Every second Saturday, we are privileged to have Joanne Ivins, AVET Project's Director of Counseling, join us with a new segment, and the title is Journey of the Spirit with Joanne. And we've got her on the line, and we'll get to her in just a moment, but that's every second Saturday. Every fourth Saturday, we're going to have Dr. Scott Fairchild with Heal the Warrior, Heal the Country. So we've got two important segments to join along with the Bosun's Call that we bring you on a regular basis, as well as the 920th Rescue Wing's Runway Report. And we're going to be adding even more of these awesome little segments in the future. But I wanted to start off by saying, you all heard this last Tuesday on January 6th about the shooting at the El Paso VA Healthcare. I'm not sure if it was an outpatient clinic or a hospital, Glenn. Do you know?
It was an outpatient clinic, and as I could tell, it was connected to the Army Hospital at Fort Bliss.
Exactly, the William Beaumont Army Medical Center at Fort Bliss. So if you heard it on the news, it was a real tragedy. A veteran, we presume, because there's scant details out there, even on the internet, at this time.
Exactly.
And we're days removed from it already, but they did close down the base, and they obviously closed down the CBOC. What's that stand for?
Community-based outpatient care. That's a VA medical facility, a clinic.
Exactly. Well, they closed it down, at an abundance of caution before they knew what all the details were, but an individual, we presume it was a veteran, went into this facility and gunned down a caregiver. And that's a tragedy, and then he shot himself. So it's a double tragedy, but it's worse than that, folks, because it shows so much. It's so telling about the state of affairs right now with the VA. Glenn, and this is all, we're just leading up to our introduction with Joanne, but Glenn, you and I are both acutely aware of how frustrated veterans have become with both their treatment through the VA healthcare system as well as the benefit side of the house.
Yeah, and the real part of the issue that concerns me a lot is that it only takes one bad apple in the VA healthcare system to completely take a person off track and frustrate them to the point that they don't know what to do anymore. And it seems like in this case, although we don't know all the details, it seems like in this case that a veteran got so frustrated that he took the life of a VA caregiver and then his own life and we'll find out more as time goes by. But it's a terrible situation.
It is, and I just have to kind of take you all back for a moment because the Department of Homeland Security, the leader of that division of our government, some years ago, painted all veterans as a potential terror threat. All right, because we all know how to use firearms. We learned that from basic on, and it's just it's going to be a bad reflection on veterans in general because that's how the media is going to pick up on this, Glenn. I'm quite assured of that.
Oh yeah, and that really concerns me and torques me off at the same time to try and paint us all with the same brush when the cause probably of these kinds of incidents is because of the overwhelming stress a veteran is feeling is because all of us were out serving our nation to keep us free.
Right, and I think that's a good segue to bring Joanne Ivins, AVET Project's Director of Counseling, into the conversation with her new segment that we are so proud to bring you called Journey of the Spirit with Joanne. Joanne, can you hear me? Excellent. Well, Joanne, we want to thank you, number one, for signing on to this new segment with American Warrior Radio, because I know you're going to bring some great information for all the listeners out there and viewers, because all these episodes go up on YouTube. But you are phoning in from Oregon. How's the weather there in Oregon on this beautiful Saturday? Well, wear a coat, stoke up the fireplace, for sure. Well, Joanne, you heard Glenn and I talking about that briefly, and you have a lot that you want to share with the audience today, but give us, or give the audience, kind of a primer. When things like this happen, it's got to be the level of frustration. We don't know what the real rationale or motive of this man was that went in and shot this physician, but I'm going to just throw it out there as kind of a presumptive guess that he was obviously frustrated. So what's your opinion of that?
And then it just, gets worse and worse and worse, and then they feel more alone, and more everything escalates until, what we need sometimes we see someone that's stressed out, a vet or something, and take time to talk to them. Let them know that we're aware of them and that we care, and if they ever want to talk, we're there. They need to be talked to at times so that they can get their frustrations out, because one of the things they need to do so much is be able to voice their concerns and have somebody really listen, not just blow them off like come back later, or I don't have time for you now. No, it's right now that they need to be talked.
I think that's wise, and you mentioned something there because it can compound their level of frustration or despair if it's just outright despair. And Glenn, always at the end of American Warrior, shares the crisis line information, which is great, but that's like the last resort. What you're saying, Joanne, and if I'm reading this right, these war fighters, these veterans, they need to feel safe and secure in talking to either a peer or someone else that actually might care about what they're going through and give them some suggestions on how to overcome it.
Yes, and when we've done our retreat, some of the vets, when they're first there, don't even talk very much. It takes them a while to warm up to whoever we are, what we represent and what we're talking about, to be able to talk to us. And we're there just for them, to help them with whatever and to honor them. And then when they start trusting us, they start opening up. And one of the things that we've seen is that their fellow vets help them. And that's what we really need, a lot of help from some of the veterans to be able to help each other, because they feel okay to talk to them about things because they've been through it. And also what needs to be out, is families. Sometimes they go into a situation where the family doesn't want to hear about what happened.
I think that happens all too often. I mean, we hear reports from veterans that we hear that, I shouldn't say every day, but often, that their families are unwilling to even discuss what's taken place or how they're feeling.
And a lot of times they come home and the family just say, well, it's over with you. That's back there. You're home now. Just be here. And they can't, because their mind and everything is still there. and so whatever's happened to them or what's going on, they feel alone, and they need to be able to express it, you know.
Exactly. Glenn, when you came back from Vietnam, how receptive were your family and friends to your experiences in Southeast Asia?
Well, they were very receptive, but then I'm in the unique situation compared to the average person because my wife's family was in the military. My father was retired from the Air Force, so they had a deep down understanding what's going on. My wife's father was a bomber pilot in World War II, so they had that pre-understanding, if you will, of what it's like to serve in the military, what it's like to go to war. My dad was in World War II and Vietnam, so I didn't face those same kind of problems. And you're right, I've seen many clients, veterans, whose family just doesn't understand this should be like the day after you left. You're back now. Be the same person that you were then. And I know that the military's made some effort. I don't know how detailed or much in depth to work with the families while the veterans are deployed, particularly in the war zone areas. I don't know how effective that is, but they need to do more, obviously.
And Joanne, you mentioned AVET Project's PR&R retreats. I want to foot stomp, you borrow one of Glenn's terms there, Project Recuperation and Reintegration Retreats for returning combat vets, because Joanne, these retreats really do change the lives of the participants.
Yes, they do. And you know what I found along the way, too, is there's so many, and I say kids, because to me they're children, kids younger, are coming back, and a lot of them have no family. I didn't realize how many go into the service of whatever and have no one to come back to. And there's some of our vets out there that are struggling. And I know when we have our retreats, we have different branches of the military, and they still have a common ground. They're serving their country, and they're proud of that. And to me, I'm just so honored to be able to even be with them and help them and talk to them and everything. And I love their spirit, because we have they're representing our country, and they're giving everything for it. And I would hope that people would honor that whenever they see any military person anywhere, to thank them, for doing that.
Exactly. I think that's a big part of it, that welcome home, that acceptance generally. And obviously getting the family engaged is important. The underlying current there, though, and you mentioned it, is those guys and gals that don't have what you had, Glenn, and that is that understanding throughout their network or, sphere of influence, the people that care about them. So many of them don't. And Joanne, you mentioned that about the PR&R retreats. When the guys and gals, because we hold the retreats separately, ordinarily, one for men and then one for female warfighters, but when they first get together, just like any social situation where even somebody that's good on their feet and can be conversive and ad-lib and what have you, we're all a little hesitant to especially reveal things about our personal lives in a new social setting. But it doesn't take long for them to understand they're in a safe place, does it?
No. And then when they do, it's amazing how they do open up. And I remember at one retreat, one of our vets said, I didn't realize until just now that I have not relaxed since I've come home. Because they're under such stress for so many different things. Coming back, supporting their family, getting a job, so many things, and they just can't even relax. It's not like, oh, I'm home, I'm just gonna relax now, because they still have a lot of them have PTSD that are, traumatic for them, and they're still experiencing it, not knowing what to do about it. Some of them are not getting help for it, and so they're just stressed out to the max.
And they're feeling that pressure to reassimilate, reintegrate back into civilian life, because they sense from their family and friends and their other network that, hey, I'm supposed to be okay. Like you said, Glenn, everything should be fine. I just carry on. And it's just not that way.
No.
Well, yeah.
They just can't come back and be normal and just come right into it. And there's so many things that happen to them that make them react to their families, whether it's their children, their wives, or whatever. They can't quite bring that connection back right away. It's hard for them. They've separated from that to go over there and fight a war. or whatever they're doing, or go to another country, whatever, they're separating so that they can serve their country and concentrate on that and all the things that they put into that, and then they come home and it's like, oh, that's over, come here, now we're here. It's very hard for them to come right back.
Yeah, and I wanted to interject again. You mentioned how important it is to thank the veterans for the job they've done for our country, and I always have a little blip at the end of the show, but I want to foot stomp this. In the 22 plus years I was a manager of the Brevard County Veteran Services team, let me give you an example, a couple of examples that happen far too often. I had a Vietnam vet. This occurred in the same week. A Vietnam vet came in, and when we were done, I said, "Thank you for your service," and he started crying.
Amazing.
And I had a World War II veteran that same week, and I said, "Thank you for your service," and he broke down in my office. That's how important it is, folks.
It is. You know, they've this affected their whole life. You know, it wasn't just some little jaunt over somewhere and they came back and everything's fine. It's affected their life. And so I know it's really hard because we've come up against it too, and we wanted to honor some vets coming in on the plane and ask someone to, we're honoring them when they come off the plane. Would you like to hold this flag and honor them and thank them for their service? And they said no. And I thought, what? I can't believe it. You know, you're in this country and safe and all these things because of them. You know, so it's hard for me to understand that.
Right, you're talking about somebody, say, in the airport, and you ask them to hold the flag as the veterans come off, and they refuse to do so. I know. And America's got, I mean, there's always going to be some unappreciative folks out there, but thank God we've got our war fighters that just put all that aside, and whatever hurt they may feel inside about not being recognized for their service. But you mentioned something else, and I got to get into this because we're talking about journey of the spirit, Joanne, and I want to get into some means and methods that can be employed to overcome some of all this stress. But a lot of the war fighters, even if they're not in a combat zone, Glenn, they could be at the DMZ in Korea, where there's always a constant threat, and they are literally experiencing something outside the realm of normal human experience. So it's not something that, I mean, let's say you witnessed a horrific plane crash. You were there on the ground and you saw this plane crash. That's obviously going to have a lasting impact, even as a civilian.
Oh, absolutely. You know, military Go ahead, Joanne.
I wanted to kind of tell them something really quick. I don't know how much time we have here.
As much time as we need.
I wanted just them to understand, I want them to understand something about the mind, because I'm a certified hypnotherapist, and how the mind reacts to things. And I wanted them to think about this because they have what they call the conscious mind, and the conscious mind can process like 2,000 operations per second, and it's trained to walk and talk and eat and smell and do all these things at the same time. And it also is concerned about what happened yesterday and what's happening tomorrow, and it's like a chatterbox of constantly thinking about everything. And that's their conscious mind. And their subconscious, this one goes into like a computer, and it stores every single thing that's ever happened to them. Everything is there. It's just like whenever they think of something, they don't even think about something because their conscious mind is like rattling on and thinking about what they need to do. One thing, and the subconscious has all the traumatic things that have happened stored away that come up every now and then when something triggers that and makes their body go into reaction of what they remember about something. And I was going to say, like, the subconscious mind gets signals, millions of sensor cells, and relaying the signals to the body, and the conscious mind, it does all your immune system, everything about moving your body. It does everything about that without anything to do with the conscious mind. And so if they can, like, I know it's really hard for them, but what we try to do when we have our retreats is to teach them how to control that and to process it. Because, like, if we were to ask in, say, hypnosis, when's the first time you were afraid of water? Because we have these people that are traumatized around water.
Sure.
The conscious mind would not be able to go there. It would go, I think it was, and it would do that.
Okay.
If they were under hypnosis and you said, when was the first time you were afraid of water? It would go directly to it. It was when I was 3 and I fell in the water. Because it's all in there like a computer. And this is what happens to our vets. Everything is there. Everything is there. And so sometimes they need to be able to process it. And sometimes they need to be able to talk about it. but then sometimes they don't want to talk about it, and that's when, there's so many different back and forth things. And so I'm trying to know if there's some things that they can do to help each other, to help themselves. And I don't know how much time I have, but one of the things I wanted to tell them about, even just in the moment, the breathing that you do when you breathe, and when people become stressed, they breathe really shallow. Like something happens, like say even this vet, something happens and they get so stressed that they're breathing fast and furious. And when they do that, it makes the mind think that they're not okay, and it sends in stress hormones. But if they can do something like breathe really deep, and the breathing it controls the mind into thinking that you're okay. Because when you breathe deep, it goes, oh, we're okay. I don't have to send in those stress hormones. And so what I wanted to tell them really quick was, if you don't,
No, we've got time, Joanne. We've got plenty of time. We're going to be coming up on a break here in a moment. So if I can hold you over on that thought for just a moment, you can stay with us here after the bottom of the hour segment. Okay, very good. Because I want you to explain this, because this is very important. It's actually vital. And the man that did what he did last Tuesday at the VA in El Paso may have benefited from hearing just the words you're going to share. But folks, we've come up to the bottom of the hour break on American Warrior Radio here on AM 1300 WMEL, the Talk to Me station. We don't want you to go anywhere, because we've just started down our first segment road of Journey of the Spirit with Joanne Ivins, AVET Project's Director of Counseling. So folks, we got a lot more coming to you on American Warrior Radio. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this short break.